And we're rolling. Welcome to the Grease Stain Cinema, where we like our popcorn greasy and we like our movies sleazy. I am your greasy host, Clint, and I'm joined here with a very special guest for a very special occasion. I have actor, director, producer, Jake C. Young. How you doing, man?
Hey man, I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I thank you for coming on. I get worried that someday I'm gonna line up one of these and then they're just not gonna show up. So so not a lot of people that follow me would probably know that we've actually spoken once before.
Yeah,
We're
a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going back like 2-3 years, something like that. I was on a completely different show, which at the time I think was probably audio only. We were doing a podcast called the Hamityville Horror. Many of those episodes are still up. If anybody cares to check those out on the Hamityville Horror YouTube channel. Um, but you will notice now I am minus a co host. And hopefully you'll notice after this episode comes out that my production value has gone up a little bit. We were just figuring things out then, much like yourself.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. Yeah.
yeah. So when we talked, you were getting ready to make a zombie film. So I'm not
Oh
going
man. Yeah.
to.
That was so long ago,
Yeah,
and
it was.
much like yourself, hopefully, between now and then, maybe the production values went up, minus the
Mhm.
co-host, but maybe the production value will go up. So, I'm right there with you, brother.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because so much has happened since then. But I would like to kind of try to fill in the gaps a little bit. Um, so, like, I would consider, you know, um, from where you started to where you are now, to you to be a success in my mind because you started a production company and you started making movies, and many of these have hit streaming services.
Yeah, uh my first couple of films, like the first real one I done was probably it's been several years ago, and the biggest one I done was, of course, it was Night of the Undead, which was the one that you had interviewed for last time whenever we done the Hamityville. And since then, I've made, let's see, like three different films, and each one of them has gone on to they've gone on to most major streaming platforms, VOD, and a lot of them have gotten like limited theatrical releases. And man, it's been a journey. It's been such a journey, learning about all this stuff, and like you said, just learning the art of exploitation film, and just like
Mhm.
the whole horror genre, and learning what people like, but yet not making it so cheesy that you don't, like, oh, I can't even
Yeah.
watch this, and like, so I think from a long time, I mean, I don't know if I would call it a success, but I've definitely, I've learned a lot along the way, and I've had a lot of fun doing it. So,
Yeah.
it's a big compliment to me. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, you've made movies and I haven't, so I mean that's a big difference between our worlds, I think. Anyhow, some of the ones that come to mind, you mentioned one already, Night of the Undead. That's You can find that on Tubi. You can also find Screecher on there.
Oh
Um,
no.
if you'd like to go and check out some of these, hey, just search the guy's name. You could scroll down through to find it. Boone is on there. I watched that recently.
Oh, I'm
Um,
sorry.
yeah,
Listen, man, you're bringing up some old ones,
I know. I
yeah, so
know.
recently, funny as it is, Screecher, it got re-released as Screecher of the Lagoon. So it's actually
I,
Screecher of the Lagoon Ultimate Director's Cut now.
oh yeah,
Just
yeah.
yeah, just so it can get some hype. And oh my gosh, like how that movie is still in existence just blows my mind. And the cult following that it has gained over the years blows my absolute mind. There's some reviews of it, like on YouTube and stuff, like people are like the Screech of the Lagoon, watching the movie, and then like it's kind of just like a bunch of guys got together with a camera and was like, let's make a movie. And I was like, that's exactly what we did.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's like, but
yeah.
I recently I got I was shooting a film, my most recent one I just wrapped up, and the crew actually stayed at my house because they had such a long drive. So they stayed, after the production, and I let them stay, actually here in my basement. And they decided it would be a great idea to have a Jake movie marathon. So uh, we start to watch Screecher and Screecher of the Lagoon, and like one of the dudes, he's like, "Man, there's just so much Screecher lore coming out," and they're like, yes, and it was like, I was like, no, I was like, this is so bad. They're like, dude, they're like, is that even you? Like, your hair is like super blonde, and like, you got, what are those gigantic, thick caterpillar eyebrows? Like that's Jake Westwood. That's who that is. So I was like, oh no. But I told him, I was like, you guys, if you go to any other productions, you cannot go and tell them, be like, yeah, Jake was cool. You let us stay at his house, and gave us pizza and everything. He just made us only watch his movies on the TV. So I was like, you can't go and tell people that.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, you forced
Yeah,
them, I'm sure.
yeah. So everything was cool except for that.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a production company
Yeah, yeah.
in order to make your own movies. How long have you had that?
So I started MTS Pictures back in 2018 officially. I kind of ran under the guise of it for a little bit before I established it fully in 2018. I kind of started out doing a lot of college productions, when I was first learning about film. And I guess really, as you can see from start to finish, I'm still learning about film.
Of
But
course.
yeah, I mean, you learn something new every time. But I have I've since been able to produce I think like 6 or 7 feature motion pictures. Most of them have gotten distribution, from on like Tubi or on Prime. The most recent one is one I am very proud of. It is called Daylight to Dark.
Mm.
Yeah, that was a fun little production. I got the opportunity to direct that and just kind of make that role. It's currently streaming and it is getting a lot of really positive reviews. Of course, it is a horror comedy film. It's currently on Prime, and man, that was a blast. I really enjoyed doing that. I get to play a Bang Wrangler. He's like a Van Helsing meets cowboy. So it's pretty
Yeah.
cool to see that. We've had a lot of really good success with MTS Pictures. And for anyone who is interested in any of the stuff that we do, any of the services that we offer under my production company, you can go to mtspicturesnews.com, and there are several just different articles and things about stuff we do, where we're at in our, I am located in Southern Kentucky. So a lot of different stuff that we do, different things that we offer, and new productions that we release, usually 1 to 2 a year. So.
Yeah. Well, I'll probably take that information and link it in the description of this
Yeah,
video.
for sure, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I like to do. Like, if it's way easier to just be like, oh, we talked about this instead of having them look for it themselves. Drop a link so they could just follow it. Oh, I just watched it. Let's check it out. So I will do that probably with a few things we talk about.
Cool.
So I did want to mention that I find it interesting that you don't just focus on like one type of movie. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
as you're saying, I mean, you've tried all sorts of different things. You've tried, horror, sci-fi, action, like psychological thrillers. I mean, comedies, combinations thereof.
Yeah, yeah. I've somehow got just really lucky, kind of maintaining that suspense and horror element, but kind of delving it into a lot of subgenres.
Hmm.
For instance, Daylight to Dark is a horror comedy.
Hmm.
I done one before that called The Dark Room. It had Diane Franklin from Amityville 2. Diane, she's awesome.
Yeah.
And it was like more of a psychological thriller. And then we had the sci-fi with the zombies. You go back to Screecher of the Lagoon with the with the giant fish monster in the woods. I tell everyone, I was like, that's like our version of that's a Southern Kentucky version of a Power Ranger fight. So it's like that's so bad. But,
Yeah.
that's just I've kind of been really lucky to delve into subgenres and just kind of be able to maintain something that we all like, such as grease stain cinema, where we have the, that really horror element and kind of the, like a bit of a suspense cheesy film that we all enjoy. But I've got to work it into subgenres. So that's been something I have really tried to focus on doing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I kind of started this show because I really kind of fell in love with the indie movie community,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
and the most awesome thing is it's like more people need to give these movies a chance because like I have seen so many worthwhile ideas, so many like you're not like nobody's telling you what to do. I mean, you can raise funds, you can come up with an idea, you can write a script, you can pick the craziest thing that you want to, any decade that you want, hire any actor. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
make it the way you want it. I mean, so I kind of get the feeling that a lot of times, these people are making movies for themselves and they're getting together and they're making them just for the love of making a film.
Making the love of film, and like for instance, this last film I done, this was like a love letter to other horror movies. I got Tuesday Night from Nightmare on Elm Street in there,
I saw
and
that.
working with her, I mean, like, how cool is that to make a film? Not only are you making a film for yourself, but you're making a film for people like you and I who enjoy these types of movies, these old school films. And you can breathe that kind of into life. And I was at a con last year where I was hosting a film festival, and they had David Howard Thornton and Michael Levy, and most of the Terrifier crew there. And it was really cool kind of seeing that had become the main guest, was guys that do indie horror. And it's still cool with the whole indie film community. I was talking with my wife the other night. We were trying to find something to watch on television, and it's like there's nothing good. Like, we have that struggle constantly. It's like, let's find something good, and you're like sitting there 30 minutes later, like, oh, just scrolling through the channels. But like, indie films and like Tubi, they provide so much more depth into a film. And like you said, people should really give more films like these a chance.
Yeah, yeah. And that's kind of my goal here. My mission is really just to shed a light on some of these things and
For
get
sure.
more
Yeah.
people to focus on it. I mean, even if I just get 10 more people to focus on a project or a specific movie, I feel like I've done something.
Yeah, and not only that, but you got to think, with this podcast, you're giving all of these guys exposure for their film. You're helping, just you're an outlet that helps us, kind of bring it to life. And I've been following your podcast since you started Grease Stain, and I mean, you've had some really interesting guests, and it's just, I'll watch them on YouTube before I go to bed or something. But that's really cool to know you're getting to you're part of bringing that community to life. So
Mhm.
that's a really cool thing.
Yeah. And I like the give and take of the community because you're helping me too.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, everybody benefits, and if we can, we can come together, as the indie people. We know what it's like to be up against the big corporations.
Mhm.
Like, there's nobody in the world that's going to give you money. There's no one that's going to just be like, hey, come on for an interview. But in the indie community, everybody has been so supportive. Per se, you have that select few that's not as supportive and kind of do get what I call like a Hollywood mentality.
Mhm.
But for the most part, everyone is very supportive, and you got people sharing your stuff. And I try to do the exact same thing if I ever can, is because I've been there. Help somebody. Even it doesn't cost anything to like and to share. That's what I tell everyone.
Right.
Support your friends, and support indie community like you do for the celebrity that doesn't even know you. So I mean, I'm very very vested in being an advocate for people who want to make movies. So like, if you got an idea, you want to make a movie, maybe you don't have the best camera equipment, maybe you don't have the best acting skills, but who cares? Make the movie. The fact that you made that movie screams volumes. And maybe it will lead to other things down the road. So indie community and indie filmmaking is something I'm very passionate about.
Well, as you were saying earlier, I will say that I have noticed a progression to your movies. Um, So obviously, I haven't seen everything that you've done, but I've seen a few, and I appreciate the different ranges of styles that you've tried and stuff like that. Um, but if it's all right, me saying so, I would venture to say that my favorite thing of yours that I've seen so far, because I haven't seen the new stuff yet, um, is the Dark Room.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was it's just starkly different from everything else that you had done previously, and I can tell a lot of effort like really went into that. Like everything from like there was some really versatile camera angles,
Mhm.
and there was a lot of like interesting like lighting and blocking, good uses of color, and somebody painstakingly took the time to give it a real grainy look to make it a very oh okay. So I these felt like real conscious decisions to give this thing like a very specific feel. And
Yeah, yeah. It definitely was. So growing up, I remember watching films like The Omen and things like that, and they were scary and kind of cheesy, but you had that raw, gritty graphicness of true suspense.
mhm,
And I was like, what about going back to the basics of something like that? And
mhm,
during the directing of the film, the styles that were chosen, some people didn't really care for it, but it was an artistic style to add that thin crackle that you hear throughout the film, like the record player, make it look like it had the gritty grain running through the screen to make it look like it was a almost shot on like an old millimeter style camera.
yeah,
And I took each and every step in that to just give it a vibe. And there's occasional like development of film, like the jump flares that come up in between the scenes and things like that. And it,
yeah,
it was a very alluding film. It was a very constructive piece. So that one it was different in that sense. Definitely, I tried to stick more towards not only was it wasn't so much as an aggressive horror. It was actually, I think someone called it a passive horror film, because the suspense is definitely there and you still feel it, but it's just not constant, stabbing and
right.
just so much horror. But it kind of plays on your psychological side, because you're like,
Mhm.
is this guy actually crazy? Is this happening? And then at the end you're just like, what the hell was that? So it was.
Right, right. Yeah, there was very few clues that let you know specifically, whether or not your character was having like some sort of psychotic break. Um, and you were left guessing that. So with the impromptu like video calls with the therapist, I mean, which was those were great. Um, and and I felt like here and there, maybe in the dialogue, there might have been like some things dropped in to make you think something different. Like either that or it was a mistake. Like the therapist, I think, was supposed to say people jump to conclusions, but she said jump to delusions, and I was like, wait a second, is he having a delusion right now?
Yeah, so that was actually kind of a plot point
Hmm.
that was said there. There are subtle little clues,
Hmm.
and some of those sometimes I found when you start making a movie, you grow as that character.
Hmm.
So as you're directing a film and being a director of a film, you kind of start dropping those little clues, because you yourself are developing with that film. So what your audience is seeing is basically what, as a director, you have felt throughout the production of that movie. So when she says jump to delusions, and you're just kind of clicking, she's like, have you been taking your lithium? And she's like, those are very dangerous. And like, have you been talking to your sister? And we can almost, like, we don't know what happened in that scene, but you can really get a strong illusion there's something more going on to that. So it was very cool, and I'm a big, I don't know if I would say I'm a huge fan, but I find analog horror films very interesting. I think it's a cool style. So I kind of wanted to do this between analog and kind of that vibe of the Skinamarink film that had recently came out just before that.
Okay.
Because we shared the same distributor, and I have like Ross Paul, who had shared. I think it was his kids that were actually like in that movie, and we keep up. So it was really cool to kind of live in that same style of film, because it's a very interesting style, and you kind of put a little bit of action in there and a little bit of suspense, and it's really it had a lot of twists that even as I was watching, I was like, oh, like I don't know. So it's like that was cool. That was really cool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a really good looking film, and you should be proud of that one. It
I appreciate that, man.
Yes, sir.
You're gonna make me want to do another one before long. I'll be creating another film like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's a huge compliment, because like you said, I think that some people can see when I done Night of the Undead, it was kind of a love letter film,
Mhm.
and production value wasn't as high as some of the newer ones that I've had. But
Right.
I've just been really lucky, and I've worked
Yeah,
really hard, and I've had a lot of really good support. So that's kind of where I gotta
yeah,
give people that, is just just kind of sticking with it.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, and a lot of times, your hands are kind of tied with what you're capable of doing you know, by the resources that you have. So, I
For sure.
mean,
Yeah.
I have run into several people who have had like almost zero budget to make a
Yeah.
film. You know what I mean? And but that was when they started.
Right.
And they developed the following, the fan base. They got better at what they did. They made
Mhm.
bigger and bigger projects. And now they're making things that premiere in theaters,
Yeah.
and it's like I was just at one um, recently. I went to the Slasher Nurse premiere, which was done by Slasher 15. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that was
It's
remade.
what's
Yeah, what's that?
Is that with Brian Bremer?
Brian Bremer's in it, and you're
So
gonna have him in a film of yours.
yeah, Brian. Oh, I love him so much.
Yeah,
He's the best. I'm scheduled to I was talking with him the night of that premiere, and he was just bragging on that film so much, and I was like, man, that is so cool, that you
yeah,
got someone like that. And
yeah,
Brian, he's a cool guy. He's just a
yeah.
really cool guy.
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, I didn't get to talk to him much that night, but I was preoccupied. But they did let me host the Q&A, which was awesome. So
Dude,
I
so
was up
cool.
on the stage. He was down at the other end. And
Yeah.
it was a great time, even though I was shitting bricks. But he gives a hell of a performance.
Oh,
So yeah, I talked to him a couple years back on my former show, and he told a story about hanging out with Lance Henriksen because they worked on
yeah.
Pumpkinhead together,
Pumpkinhead, for sure.
and
Yeah.
and then they saw each other at a show again. And he said one of the things that he learned from Lance was, like no matter what job you get, honor the work. So in essence, doesn't matter what the production is. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You be the best thing that you can be in that production. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, and he delivers. I mean,
oh
he
yeah,
delivers for sure. So I've had a lot of conversations with Brian over the years, and just
yeah,
talking to him, he gets it, and that's kind of
mhm,
rare to work with an actor who just gets it. Versus there's a lot of that like more name actors um that I have personally met, that they just kind of see it for a role versus actually getting, just getting that part in that character. And that's one thing I will definitely say about Brian Bremer, is he gets it, man. He gives a hell of a performance every
yeah,
time he's in front of a camera.
yeah. So it's exciting that he's going to be on your Souls Chapel project.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I don't mean to ramble on and jump around, but there are a couple of other things that you were in that I feel like I'm going to have to go check out just because I saw them when I was trying to do some research here and I did not find the time to watch them. Um, Reunion from Hell 2 comes to mind. I know you were working on somebody else's project there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I think I saw an interview where you were talking about that. You were talking to Scotty McCoy, and you told a story about being on that set, about somebody saying, uh, "Hey, what you eating there?" And the guy looks up. He says, "A sandwich." Um, did that kind of end up in the dark room? I feel like there was a scene where you're talking to the therapist. She's like, "What you eat today?" And you go, "A sandwich."
Yeah. So that was actually there are little things in a lot of movies that you put from real life stuff. Like so it was Mark Patton, Elm Street 2.
Yes.
I'd walk downstairs one morning and one of the cast members was standing there, and I'd walk downstairs, it's early, and he goes, "What are you eating?" And he goes, "Oh, sandwich." Mark's like, "Well, no shit." I'm just dying. I was like, that was great. I was like, who like he's like, that's Mark Patton, and I was like, okay, whatever. So, but yeah, that fits so well. It's like a sandwich, and she's like, "Well, how is your sandwich?" So you get little things like that, where she's like, "Oh, look at that! I got a laugh out of Mr. Clint Eastwood himself," and
Yeah, yeah.
there's little things in there that really make your film kind of come to life and make it more you. So yeah, a lot of those things do end up in some other films. For instance, there was a line in The Dark Room
Okay.
that we kind of come up with last minute, but it has progressively made its way into almost all of my other films.
Okay.
Yeah, so there is a line in The Dark Room when Shane Thompson comes into the shop. My character is talking to him about the camera, trying to get him to sell it.
Okay.
He
Yeah,
goes,
yeah.
"No, I want the film, dingus, the film." He's like, and I was, what?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was thinking if you want to sell, I would give you 350.
No, dingus, the film.
So we were doing that on set, right? So like it was like a last minute thing. I was like, "You should call me Dingus." He's like, "I'm not gonna call you a dingus." I was like, "Call me Dingus, so I get in there." And he's like, "Okay," and then he's like, "No, Dingus, the film." So it has progressively made its way into almost all of my other films. And if you watch Daylight to Dark, you're going to see verbal cameos of Dingus. It's just been kind of an ongoing joke. So,
Yeah.
that's been something I've found has been kind of a fun little Easter egg.
Yeah.
And, that was just hilarious. He's
Yeah.
like, "No, Dingus." Like,
I love stuff like that.
yeah. So, there's a scene in there in Daylight to Dark, which I'm not gonna give too much away, but one of the actors, they're going to a con, and there's like a costume and stuff, and he's like, "Oh man, I forgot a piece to my costume," and one of the ladies looks at, she's like, "Well, go get it, dingus." So it's just it's progressively gotten just thrown in there liberally.
Right.
It's really cool to have little things like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's cool to find creative places to just stuff that, so people who are in the know can start looking for it.
Yeah. So if you watch this interview, look for the dingus.
Dingus.
Dingus,
Yep.
yes.
So you brought up Daylight to Dark a little while back. I talked to two of your cast.
Yeah.
Talked to Cody Grimes King and Derek Overstreet.
Mm-hmm.
They were a lot of fun. And we talked a lot about vampires. I believe that both of them perhaps appear as vampire characters in the movie.
Yes.
And it is a comedy film. I do remember asking them if they found it difficult to do comedy, because comedy is not as easy as it seems. Like, a lot of people who are good at it make it seem effortless, but like when you intentionally try to do it, something that looks funny on paper might not always come across when you put it on film.
Yeah.
What are your
So
feelings of that?
you just gotta naturally be a dingus, man.
Okay.
Yeah, so no, like when you do a comedy, 100%, that's one of the hardest genres to write, and I am so thankful. Roland Jewett, who wrote American Vampire, wrote this, and this is actually a follow-up film to his American Vampire. It had Adam West and Carmen Electra in it, and he wrote that film, and he come along to help us write this one, and when you have a seasoned writer like that, they can throw stuff in. But I got to be honest, some of the stuff that is in that film is just 100% natural, raw emotion. A lot of improvisation. And if you've seen the trailer,
Mhm.
the kid who plays the main character, I call him a kid. He's like 21, but to me, it's a kid. So
Yeah, pretty much.
but yeah, but Drake, I mean, he is like so that character you see, that's actually him. That's him in real life. Like so the character you see, he's like, let's go kill some vampires, So that's him, and what was hilarious was his mother actually she was on set and she makes a cameo in the film and she worked a lot on production design and a lot on set decor and prop mastering and script supervising, just kind of really bringing the game. And there would be scenes he would be acting and he would say things while the camera weren't rolling and she'd look at him and be like, excuse me. So it's just like he'd be like, oh sorry mommy. So that was just raw emotion, and comedy is definitely very hard to try to pull off. But Cody and Derek, that was both of their first first major acting role in a film, and man did they both nail it. I thought, there's some people that just kind of have skills, and then there's some people that are just kind of born to do things like acting, being in film. And for first timers, usually you got to coach them, but these guys just walked into it already ready to go. So
Yeah,
they were really good, and I give them a lot of praise on their performance.
that's awesome.
Yeah, man.
I'm glad they understood the assignment.
They definitely did. Which, granted, I think they both really enjoyed that because they're like, yes, we get to be badass vampires. It was
Yeah.
it was a really cool little thing. And I built a lot of fun, good relationships off of that film. And some of the faces in Daylight to Dark will actually be, in some other productions I got coming up. So,
Okay.
Daylight to Dark was just it was a fun film. I actually, going back to my Jake movie marathon that my DPs watched.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
actually they wanted to watch Daylight to Dark, and ironically, one of the DPs was actually he was one of them on Daylight to Dark, but hadn't seen the movie yet. And I was like, dude, I was like, this has been out, and he's like, I haven't seen it. So we all sat down here and watched it, and I at times I genuinely found myself laughing at the film. And I was like, this is my work. And that's like a big no-no. You shouldn't be enjoying your own stuff this much. But I was enjoying watching my co-stars' performances just because their emotions and just knowing overall who they were. I mean, you cannot help but laugh at some of the stuff they say.
Yeah.
Like there's some like references to a lot of modern day stuff that really just kind of make you want to giggle. Like there's a few jokes about Taylor Swift and Twilight and things like that in the movie. So it's very meta.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh hell, what the hell was I going to say? Something.
I do
Um,
that. Okay.
oh, all the time. Yeah, it's okay to watch your own stuff and laugh at it. You know what I mean? I'm the biggest dork in the world. I go back and watch all my stuff. Yeah, because in a way, it's kind of nice to be over like all the stresses of creating it. Then you can go back and kind of enjoy it.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but beyond that, that's part of your self improvement. You know what I
Yes.
mean? It's like I can critique myself. It's like, well, I don't really like what I did there. I'll do less of that, and I really liked how that turned out. Let's do more of that. You know what I mean?
I know 100% what you mean. As a
Yeah.
director, you go back and you'll always be your own worst critic. I don't care if it's podcasting, making movies, drawing, accounting, anything you do, you'll be your own worst critic. But
Mhm.
I went back and I I learned a lot on cinematography, and when you do editing on a lot of your own stuff, you kind of get this. I call it the shoot to edit mentality. You actually shoot it because you know how you're going to edit it and know what you want to see, and that tends to make your on-set production run a lot smoother and kind of get things moving a lot quicker. So
Right.
it's really good to be able to have that kind of mindset in there, and then you can critique yourself, but not so much in a bad way. As much as it's a learning curve, you know. It's you learn from your mistakes, you live and you learn, but you know each one. The goal is to try to get better, and if not, you know you will eventually. You just got to keep trying it. That's what I
Exactly.
learned. Yeah, yeah. It's like maybe shouldn't have done that. Let's not call this daylight to dark of the lagoon. So let's.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the extreme director's cut.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
wait. So wait. I had to do it, but there is actually an extended director's cut of Daylight to Dark.
is there now?
Yes, there is a 2-hour extended director's cut of Daylight to Dark. That will be coming to Blu-ray. Hopefully in the next couple of months. You're gonna get the theatrical version, Blu-ray versions, and the before we release to major outlets on Blu-ray, I always try to go with a little company you may have heard of called MakeFlix.com
I've heard
that
of them.
house, yeah, that house like all the exploitation cinema that is
Yeah.
just cheesy and sleazy and some of the best damn indie movies you're ever going to see. And we usually release all of our Blu-rays there first, just because it's such a captivating thing for collectors. So definitely going to try to push that extended director's cut for anybody who might want to see it. Granted, it's not a whole lot more from the story, but there's an article they done about this. The movie, man, it was really fun to shoot, and overall, it was great. But I remember the first time watching it, and like our first premiere and our test audience that we kind of done it on. I had people like getting up and like leaving because it was so long. The movie was like 2 hours. Like we had to actually take an intermission because it was so long. And
Oh,
I was like, there's no way. And then when we try to go to putting it on streaming and stuff, they're like, this movie's so long, we're gonna have to cut it down. It's a VOD release, and it's like this long. It needs to be here. This
yeah,
needs
yeah.
to be like. So we ended up cutting the movie down. It's like an hour and 40 minutes now, but there is
Okay.
a over 2 hour extended director's cut, and it's just got a lot more footage. Not a lot extra to the story, but quite a bit more, footage and more dialogue to these characters. Give them a little more depth. So, if you want to check that out, I definitely think that's something you should check out. But if you're okay with what you see, you know, I'm not gonna press you. I'm not gonna press you on that either. So,
Yeah,
yeah, that's I am excited to release a director's cut, not an ultimate extended director's cut,
yeah,
just a
yeah,
cut.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
It's all right. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
that's cool. I'm glad to hear that it's gonna hit somewhere.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. This film it's been fairly successful so far. We've got 4-star reviews, a lot of good ratings, and some people aren't an entire fan of different things, but you'll definitely get a good laugh whether it's looking at some cheesy production stuff or whether it's just some of the jokes in there. And when we were shooting this, the film, when you do a lot of indie films, you have stuff that's supposed to look really cool, like you said, on paper, and you're like,
yeah.
man, it's gonna be badass, and then you shoot it, and you're like, oh, maybe that wasn't so cool, So, like, but we play into a lot of the cheesiness that is in this movie, so it's actually, I think it just works, and just learning to play into that and to actually make it flow to play into that. That was a real learning curve in itself. But overall, I'm pretty pleased with the way it turned out.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Well, I did see Tuesday Night was in this, and
Yeah,
saw some of the uh, pictures of how
yeah,
she was done up for that. She looked great.
yeah.
Um, yeah. What would she like to work with?
Tuesday. So where do you start with Tuesday? She's a woman of many talents. She Tuesday actually composed some music in this movie. She sings in the film. Tuesday is actually a professional singer. A lot of people don't know this, but she actually has her own songs on a record label. Tuesday's father was actually a songwriter as well. Wrote a lot of songs for a lot of hit stars back in the 50s and 60s.
I did hear that.
Yeah, so Tuesday has very many talents. She was very, very cool to work with. Overall, it was just, man, it was hilarious, having her on set. Where we were filming at, the people were gone, and we were using it kind of like a Airbnb style deal, which it wasn't. I knew the guy, so he was like, yeah, you can use my place. It's an old, it actually ironically used to be a B&B, like back in the old days or whatever that was. So,
Yeah.
so we actually were shooting there, and they had like this little, it's like a little wiener dog or something, and like she was packing it around everywhere. It wasn't even in the film, and she was like, I want to put this in the film. I was like, oh my god, But it was she has such a love for animals, and such a love for cinema. It was a lot of fun getting to work with her, and I think everybody that did get to work with her, that whole day it was kind of a long day, which is it's really crazy because we flew her in for like she was here for like 4 days, but we only filmed for like one or something. So
Okay.
yeah, so we ended up only filming one day, but we have multiple scenes throughout the film with her, and her makeup, was done up, everything. She just nails the role. So a lot of people, whenever they see it, they're really gonna, feel that vibe because actually, I see this is hard because I want to start giving more away about the film, and it's like no, let these people watch it.
Yeah, that's right.
You
That's
know,
right.
there's a lot of chemistry between myself and Tuesday and our characters, and we had a very good energetic vibe where we could kind of feed off of each other's energy during
Mhm.
the scenes. Because mostly in the film, her and my character used to kind of be involved, and now she's got that love hate relationship. So it's been like a good while. I'm a vampire hunter. She's like a queen vampire. So it's like,
Oh, that could be fun.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. We were both just bouncing off that energy. So
Yeah.
she was awesome to work with.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, I do plan to check that out now that it's finally
Yeah,
hitting
man.
streaming
Yeah,
services.
and I would love to have your feedback. I've been telling everybody, feedback, good, bad, or ugly. It's how I learn, and I hope you just enjoy it. I hope one night you just have a movie night and you're like, oh hey, what's this? Daylight to Dark. Maybe it's not that bad. Click it, watch it, and if you love it, you know, yeah, I'd love to hear about it. I get a little quirky like that. I just like to hear other people's critiques of my work, and it's a good feeling whenever people actually enjoy something you do,
Yeah.
and that's why we do it. We do it for entertainment and the love of film. So it's really good to know that sometimes people like what you do.
Yeah. And it's also nice when people watch a movie and then actually take the time to go rate it and review it somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and like
Whether
like
whether it be IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes or something like that.
yeah, preferably more than one star is always nice, but
Yeah,
yeah.
hint, hint,
Give me two. I'll take two.
Okay, okay.
1.5 is good, just not one.
Yeah. Um, so we do have another project to talk about.
Oh
Your
yes.
your current one, the one that is open, the one that you are getting ready to make. Souls Chapel
Yeah.
currently has a live Indiegogo, at least for a few more days.
Yeah.
Who knows? By the time I get this out, it might be done. Um, but I get the impression that at least the location um, is considered to be an actual haunted location.
Yes. So I don't know if you know a lot about Souls Chapel.
I don't. I watched a YouTube video that you shared on the official Facebook page, so I
Yeah.
did. I got a little bit there.
So Souls Chapel is here in my hometown, here in Southern Kentucky. Souls Chapel is actually supposed to be one of the most haunted places in all Kentucky. It is actually based on a real life place. It was spelled Souls Chapel with an E instead of Souls. Our film, we shortened it down to just regular Souls because that can get kind of confusing.
Yeah.
But it's loosely based on the real legend of Souls Chapel. Souls Chapel, there was so there's a lot of lore that surrounds this, especially locally.
Yeah.
So I'm not really entirely sure what all is legitimate and what all is just folklore, but it overall is very interesting because there was a supposed story, a pastor who was a double worshiper and conducted a lot of really strange rituals and things, there on the grounds. And so there's supposed to be a grave there where where his headstone is, and no grass currently grows. They've done a lot of like EKGs and stuff. Is that what you call that? EK? Maybe no, that's the heart thing. Like the sonar style thing. I'm not much on
Oh,
paranormal.
okay.
I'm not vexed in that technology, but they've had some really like wild stuff go on there. So I took the opportunity after writing this film to loosely base this film on the real place, Souls Chapel, and really try to incorporate some of the original lore in there without getting too crazy. It's enough to make you have a very suspenseful film, and kind of get a little bit of the history about the film as well. This one is very dark. This one is very horror, very much a thriller. So we have currently um, we've currently wrapped shooting on principal photography. There's still a few pickups that we're going at. I was able to we filmed in an old abandoned western town here where I'm at, a couple scenes. And then we built a copy of the church. We built an actual set, for the church. And man, I think everyone who watches this one is going to be in for a treat.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, this one was, I think we filmed the whole thing in like 6 days. And, everybody's talking about Souls Chapel and like the legend of it being cursed and stuff. And, like the last day that we were shooting our film, right before we got done, we had like 4 scenes left to go. And the whole building got flooded in like 8 inches of water. It was just like, it was crazy. So I was like, oh,
Wow.
yes. Yeah, it was insane. It was enough to file an insurance claim. So I mean,
Oh,
it was
holy
like,
shit.
yeah, it was insane. And I've got actors standing there and like, standing there, camera guys, and like they're all sloshing around in water above their ankles. And they're like, I think this is cursed. And I was like, but we're still gonna do it. And we did it, and man, it turned out fantastic. And
Yeah.
kudos to those guys. But I think everyone who, if you're a true fan of horror and you're a true fan of like supernatural and real lore, this has a very strong steampunk vibe to it, and a very strong horror vibe to it. So anyone who's a fan of those things should really enjoy this one as well.
Okay. That's really cool. So I mean, did the idea start with the chapel story, or you just kind of thought, well, that would be a really cool thing to incorporate it into my story?
So the story actually changed about 7 or 8 different times,
Okay.
because I started working on it. Something wasn't right. Went to one of my friends. Ironically, this guy was actually he was one of the very first computer game developers, and he's an author, and he does writing with me occasionally. He writes, film and story, and he took it and he's like, let's do this. And we worked on it back and forth till we got it right where we wanted to be. And we had the story we had done had it was funny enough, had incorporated all of these elements, but it was just missing the title. And I was like, what would be a good title for this? So I was on vacation, and me and my wife, we were just talking about a story about something that had happened at Souls Chapel, but I didn't know it was at Souls Chapel. And she was telling me the story, and I told her, I said, you know what I think I'm going to call this film? And she said, what? I said, Souls Chapel. And she was like, oh my God. I was like, what? She's like, that story I just told you took place at Souls Chapel. And I was like, what? No way. And she's like, yeah. So I was like, so, okay, all the planets are aligning. I think this is what we need to make this film and call it and run this into the actual story, because it was weird. It was almost like we wrote a story without knowing what we were writing it about. And there's so much lore that we just kind of come up with that was like so parallel with the actual stuff that happened in Souls Chapel, that it's just kind of mind boggling when you start to think about it. I mean,
Wow,
it's like there's a lot of weirdness in the air.
that's pretty crazy.
It is crazy, yeah. But we've actually got some really cool perks on our Indiegogo.
Mhm.
We've done a lot of stuff to try to do more incorporation for our donors and our producers of the film to stuff they would kind of benefit to having versus, you know, a lot of times you get these more if you want to, you know, pay for this, you can, you know, play a role or whatever. We kind of wanted to go more with some more creative stuff. Like we done one where you can have your name on a headstone or your, you know, have your head in a jar, or, you know, really creative little things. um and now we've actually got one on there. It's actually kind of one of my personal favorites, where you can get a small vial of the actual soil from Souls.
I'm looking at that right now.
Yeah, yeah, and that's actually kind of one of my favorite ones, because
Yeah,
that one's unique, and like you could set it on a shelf and be like, let me
yeah.
tell you the story about this. And there's so much lore that surrounds that. And I'm gonna try to see if I can't get a few friends and a few documentary filmmakers to maybe release a little bit about that as well. You know,
Yeah.
just to spread more information about Souls.
Yeah. I mean, everything I'm looking at on the Indiegogo seems very reasonable. I mean, you know, it's only $39 to get a signed DVD copy. You know.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, that's what I tried to really stick with on this, because
Hmm.
you get a lot of Indiegogos that are like, you know, $1 million for you know, to be an executive producer. I'm like,
Yeah.
nah, you know, like I think the most we got on there is like $300 or $400, and you know that goes further than people think. You know, honestly, a like and a share goes further than you think,
Yeah.
and just liking and sharing helps us get the word out. And you know, whenever we first done this, someone asked me like, "Well, I want to support you. How much?" And I was like, you know, this is one thing I do on every one of my campaigns. You will never hear me specifically ask you to donate money. I will say a like and a share would be great. And if you want to check out the campaign, here it is. Whatever you feel like you want to, go for it, because you know your support helps me. If you want to give me $2, hey, that's going to help me buy somebody a cup of coffee and keep them happy on set and keep them warm. So you know that's kind of what I always do, and I like to give my viewers a sense of I want them to get something out of it. I want them to really get something. If you're going to back me, I want you to get something out of what you're backing, and really, you know, that way you get more of a strong support to know you're getting something out of it versus just, you know, there's a lot of these guys, you know, you know, donate to them and you're like, well, you know, where'd it go? So it's really cool to kind of give back. I really like
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah. That's incredible. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. I try
Yeah.
to give back, and you know, especially with people who do like the head in the jar thing, you know. And you know, people were talking to me about that, and I was like, you know, um, I know there's a lot of people who are, you know, a lot of people on Indiegogos want to build their IMDb, you know, because that is a credit, you know. And I was like, you know, if you put your, you know, you do the head in the jar, we'll actually give you an IMDb credit in the film and stuff, you know, to kind of help build that. And a lot of times you kind of gotta do a little extra for that, but yeah, I try to give back, and that way whenever people see the movie sitting on their couch at home, they're like, oh, that's my head in the jar, you know. So it's kind of do the Leo thing. They're like, whoa, whoa.
You're right.
Yeah. So it's really cool to give back and kind of you know, put a smile on people's face.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I hope that the Indiegogo ends really well. I will. I'll link it anyway in this video,
Yeah, man, really
whether
appreciate
it's
it.
still going or not. Um, and if you got a couple more minutes, I
Yeah.
just wanted to throw out a few quick questions. I throw these in here for fun. I call it the lightning round.
Yeah.
So,
Like,
all right. So, I modify it a little bit if I'm talking to an actor or a director
okay,
or whatever.
okay.
So I'm like, what would you say is the most challenging aspect of making a film? There's a lot of challenges, but you personally, what do you think's the worst part of it?
Getting out of bed. So, oh man, I don't think that's a fair question as a film. You know, I heard an old saying once. It says anyone who's never made a film thinks theirs is the best. Anyone who's ever made a film thinks they'll never make another one. So
Okay.
there's a lot of struggle that goes into it. There's a lot of challenging, but scheduling is very challenging when it comes to trying to get your actors nailed down, because that's one of the hardest things is getting the people there on the days you need to get, because people think that a lot of these things are shot in chronological order, and
Mm,
not even close. Like
right.
I may have someone to shoot a scene that's in the middle, and we'll shoot their death scene that doesn't come until the end of the movie all in that same day. So that's kind of probably one of the most challenging things, because you're kind of at the mercy of everyone else, and making sure it fits for them and not have schedule conflicts. And then another thing, this would be more in the line of editing and directing, is probably going to be doing your own sound design and editing, because you have to mix everything strategically. Okay, so if there's one thing that is off, if I do this and you don't hear my hands clap, you're gonna be like, oh no. But when I do this and you hear my hands clap, your brain automatically starts putting stuff together. So that is probably one of the most challenging things, is to make sure your sound design is on point.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah. You're not alone in saying that scheduling is the most difficult
I can
thing.
only imagine what it's like as a podcaster. And and you do video too, so like
Yeah.
I can only imagine. And then trying to work it in on top of your daily
Yeah.
condolences, and man, I got to give it to
Yeah.
you. Kudos.
Yeah.
Condolences and kudos. Two
Yeah.
things that go together.
Oh, I appreciate that very much.
For sure.
But I've spoken to other people who make films, and
Yeah.
they've said exactly the same thing. Like, it's very difficult to get their scheduling right. And I've heard horror stories where, like, yeah, they got some people for a few scenes, but then they couldn't help out anymore and they weren't done shooting, and that sounds to me like an absolute freaking nightmare.
Yeah. And then you're like sitting there like, okay, someone find me a stand-in or start writing a new script. And you're like halfway through. That's exactly how that goes.
Exactly.
And that can be a little gut wrenching. So I've luckily kind of got to the point now that most of the people I work with are very committed to what they do, which is
Mhm.
really good. That proves your commitment as an actor, is being committed to what you do.
Mhm.
Your commitment to a film, and that says a lot about your character too. If you're willing to stick it out and not just throw in the towel, but you're willing to see a production all the way through to the very end and not bow out, that says a lot about your character. And I have been fortunate enough to work with some of those people. So I've been pretty lucky, especially on this last one, to not have too much of a scheduling conflict.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What would you say is one of your greatest victories or accomplishments so far?
We still talking about film?
Yeah.
Okay. Man, so I really gotta say, getting my films on a audience that is kind of worldwide, like Tubi and Amazon and things like that, to me that's a great victory, because that kind of just it sets you apart from, I was here, but now I'm really here, because I've made it officially there. And that's a big deal. You got a lot of smaller distributors, and indie films are starting to become more and more popular, but I started at a time when there wasn't a lot of indie film, and I've competed against a lot of bigger studios, dropping new films every time they come around. So one of my greatest victories is I've been doing this now for, I'm going on almost 10 years. So I'm still doing it. So that's probably one of my greatest victories.
That's great. That's great. Never give up.
You never gave up. I
Yeah.
thought about it, never did it. Sure,
So-
you can relate.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
We all can. So, given your past experiences and possibly future ambitions, do you have either a dream role that you'd like to play or a dream project you'd like to make?
Yeah. So the dream role, I feel like I kind of done that on the last one, because Daylight to Dark, yeah, surprisingly, everyone that I worked with told me like, dude, you were born to play this role. And I was like, yeah, but that was a role I've been waiting for so long to step into, just that badass cowboy cigar smoking vampire killer. I had waited so long to do something like that, and then I finally done it, and I was like, that was it. So that was a kind of a dream come true. As far as a dream project, man, I got so many projects that I've got that I would love to do, and I can't specifically nail one down, but I've got a few in the pipeline that I learned a long time ago that the opportunities probably weren't just going to happen, so I had to make them happen. So I've got very lucky when it comes to making films that I like to make, just because of that instance.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any upcoming appearances you'd like to plug?
Yeah. I've got one in, I think it's, oh man, I'm such a terrible person.
You
have
send it to
so-
me later.
I have so many going on. No, I do believe it's in June, I believe. It's in Charlie's Comic Con in Fort Myers, Florida. Yeah, I will be there, and I will be signing autographs, and I'll be there as a guest, and just kind of talking to people. And I really enjoy going to like cons and being a guest at those places, because you get to meet a lot of cool people and people who have seen your stuff, and when they see your stuff and know who you are, it's really cool, kind of like, for instance, to talk about the things that we did, because it's really cool to share the experience with those people, because they're not just my experiences anymore. I've shared what I've seen, what I've created with the whole world, and hopefully it's made an impact enough that they want to come down and see me and meet me. So if anybody's in that area, if you're in the Fort Myers area in June and you want to swing by and say hey, I'd love to see you.
Fantastic. Well, we talked about the Indiegogo. I mentioned briefly the official Facebook page for Souls Chapel. But are there any other places or social media outlets or anything like that you'd like to mention for people to find and get updates on what you got going on?
Yeah, for sure. And definitely thanks for throwing that out there. I've got mtspicturesnews.com. That is news and most updates about my production company, MTS Pictures. MTS Pictures also has Facebook. You can find us there. We post a lot of our upcoming projects and stuff we do. So even when we do casting and things like that for people who want to be involved and, maybe do an audition to be in a film, that's the best place to go. And all that stuff, it gets managed, and then usually comes directly to me, so I can see your casting video, and we'll go from there. But that's a really good one. MTS Pictures News, MTS Pictures Facebook. If you want to find me, you can find me under Jake C. Young on Facebook, or you can search Jake Eastwood on Facebook. We'll say I've kind of had the friend requests of doom, because I have hit my almost 5,000. So I almost have got to the point where I can't really accept a lot of other friend requests on there. I actually did meet it the other day, and I had to go through and like unfriend some like older accounts, that are no longer active, unfortunately. But it's a really good platform to connect with people. So if you want to find me on there, you can find me or follow me on there. And then on Instagram, I am at Jake C. Young _official. I post a lot there, and there's a lot of stuff I got going on, but I definitely love connecting with people and meeting people in the same similar field. It's really cool to kind of make a good connection.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Jake, I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight, taking a few minutes to talk to me and entertaining my silly questions. I had a great time. I hope it was a good experience for you.
Yeah, man, had a lot of fun. This is one I always look forward to.
Yeah. I'm glad we got to catch up again. So
and we'll have to do it again soon.
Yeah,
do it
absolutely.
Again soon. Yeah. Really thankful you had me on tonight, Clint. And I posted a little video before I came on. Kind of had Clint's face on there, so
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, love it. Yeah. This is definitely a lot of fun. Always good talking to you.
Yeah, I'll do the Leo thing. Whoa, whoa.
Here I come.
Whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it, man. I love it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, man, we'll promote some stuff, and to anyone who's watching this, please keep watching the Grease Stain Cinema podcast, because Clint is a really old friend and he does a great job, and give him some credit, man.
All right. I appreciate that very much. And likewise, go check out all his films on streaming platforms. Daylight to Dark just hit.
Daylight to Dark.
Yeah. So, and I just want to say on my way out of here, you don't need a big budget to make a badass movie. And cut.